moment to welcome the panelists from India and all the distinguished attendees. India's Union Budget 2022. The panelists few days back by Honorable Finance Minister Srimati Nirmala Sitharamanji, which seeks to complement macroeconomic level growth and also all the inclusive welfare programs. I think the budget is very much visionary. It is in Amrit Kaal, that is 75 years of independence, and then looking at 100, India at 100. So it gives a map, how to go about. The four priorities in the budget, as mentioned by Finance Minister, that is Prime Minister's Gati Shakti, that is infrastructure, inclusive development, productivity enhancement and investment in sunrise opportunities, energy transition and climate action, financing of investments. I'm just mentioning few, which are very much of interest to US investors and then tech entrepreneurs. The big infrastructure push is through Gati Shakti program. It has national highway networks, rails that is extended, and 4 multimodal logistic parks that is to be set up with our public-private partnership mode. 100 PM Gati Shakti cargo terminals. You know how important it is now to become a reliable link in the supply chain, global supply chain, and National Ropeways Development Program, that is Parvatmala. So these are all being taken up by PPP mode. And these infrastructure measures really are the ones which were being pitched by many advocacy bodies in the US. Setting a stronger tone for energy transition, climate action and urban planning. So battery swapping policy of setting up charging stations at a scale in urban areas, and additional allocation of US $2.6 billion for productivity linked incentive for manufacturing high efficiency solar modules, again to meet the target of 280 gigawatts of installed solar capacity by 2030, and 5 to 7% biomass pellets to be co-fired in thermal power plants. And that is basically to focusing on climate change. 4 pilot projects to be set up in coal gasification and conversion of coal into chemicals, sovereign green bonds, 400 energy efficient trains to be manufactured over the next 3 years. So this is in the area of infrastructure, that is a push. Telecom sector, the scheme for design and manufacturing launched to promote 5G ecosystem as part of existing PLI scheme. I just mentioned it applies to telecom equipment also. Spectrum auction to facilitate rollout of 5G will be held this year. 5% of annual collections under the Universal Service Obligation Fund, and that is ensuring affordable broadband in rural areas. You all know what is the penetration rate. It is very high in India to the rural areas. Contracts to be awarded to lay optical fiber in rural areas under BharatNet, that is under again PPP model, expected to be completed by 2025. So then you saw some sectors which are Atmanirbharta plan, that is Atmanirbharta in defense sector. 68% of capital procurement budget earmarked for domestic industry in 22-23, up from 58% in during the last year. Defense R&D to be opened up for industry, startups and academia. Sunrise opportunities are also a main focus. Government to fund R&D in sunrise opportunities like artificial intelligence, geospatial systems, drones, semiconductors in that ecosystem. The space economy and genomics and pharmaceuticals, green energy and clean mobility systems are sunrise opportunities which are going to be given Philip. MSME push, that is the small scale and medium industry enterprises. At the outset of the pandemic in May 2020 has been extended. Now this particular guarantee scheme has been extended till March 2023. So this extension is very welcome for those industries. And export promotion is always there, and special economic zones act is to be phased out as they have lost sheen after the conclusion of tax-free period. In place of SEZ Act, new legislation launched to encourage states to optimally utilize available infrastructure and enhance competitiveness of exports. And ease of doing business, you all know, the Center for Processing Accelerated Corporate Exit, that is CPACE, to be established for speedy voluntary winding up of companies. This will also be statutory mechanism for resolving cross-border insolvency, along with the amendments proposed in the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Education sector is there, digital university for world-class quality universal education to be established. Digital finance and banking, introduction of Digital Rupee by Reserve Bank of India starting this year, this financial year. Scheduled commercial banks to set up 75 digital banking units in 75 districts. This is the push on digital finance. You all know about Gift City and world-class foreign universities and institutions would be allowed in Gift City, free from domestic regulations except those IFSCA. An international arbitration center would be set up in Gift City for timely settlement of disputes. And then agriculture has a bigger priority. Special fund will be set up for funding startups, providing tech support to farmers, and US $31 billion in MSP to farmers, minimum support price for procurement of meat and paddy. Use of Kisan drones will be promoted. So the assessment of digital land records, and then this is a big thing going on in various states, and it will be promoted. Providing greater fiscal space to states, enhanced outlay to states for capital investment, including 50-year investment-free loans over and above normal borrowings. And I think we will be hearing much more from the experts on the tax regime, etc., which is more useful for this one. See, despite all the challenges of COVID, this is second year during which the budget is being presented under the shadow of COVID, but still, India is showing a promise of growth, which is pegged at 9.2%, which is highest in the large economies. I think with these few words, I would like to leave the stage for the experts, and my sincere thanks once again to ICAI San Francisco chapter, Vish, Geetha, Sudha, Nilesh, and ICICI Bank San Francisco for organizing this event. I thank and appreciate the distinguished panelists and the audience who have joined us today to listen to us. Thank you very much. Namaskar. Dhanyavad.
Hi, Geetha. Do you want to take over?
Sure. I was just wondering if Nihar Jambusaria ji is there.
I think we may have to do that address later, Geetha. So I think we should kick off.
Okay. Certainly. Well then, welcome everybody. Good morning, good evening, and thank you for diving in. I am Geetha Ramakrishnan, the current chairperson of ICAI in San Francisco, a very proud outpost of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. We've been serving the West Coast and beyond for the last 5 years now. And we're delighted to bring you this program in association with our ever supportive mentors, the Indian Mission, the Consul General of India in San Francisco, and of course, our colleagues in the Midwest, ICAI, Chicago. So we have a sparkling, scintillating program lined up for you. We're all going to walk away more intelligent, better informed than we were at the beginning. So let me start off by introducing our rock star panelists. I'll start with CA Jain Saab. Now, many of you on this webinar are chartered accountants, so you will recognize Ved Ji as our past president. The world, of course, knows him as a tax luminary. He has authored many, many books on direct taxes over the years and regularly contributes to many, scholarly journals and publications. He is also a very sought after speaker and appears on many fora on matters related to finance and taxation. But truly, what makes his views and thoughts so valuable is not just because he's a tax expert. He's an overall India expert. The folks at the finance ministry, they consult with him. They take his counsel, including on this budget process. He has been and continues to be on the boards of public sector enterprises, of big corporates. Presently, he's the director on the board of DLF Limited, Inventia Healthcare. He's the chairman of at the MCX Clearing Corporation Limited. So my point is, he's not just a tax expert; he's a business expert and an India expert. So welcome to our polymath of the day, CA Ved Jain. I now turn to our second panelist, no less accomplished. Mr. Samir Narang is the head of the Economics Research Group at ICICI Bank. He has 15 years of experience in macroeconomics and investment research, spanning both the public and the private sector. Most recently, he was the chief economist at Bank of Baroda. And I've heard so many of his YouTube interviews and clips, wonderfully illuminating even the most arcane concepts. Anyway, the Economics Research Group at banks such as ICICI are responsible for tracking global and domestic macroeconomics spanning growth, inflation, currencies, monetary, fiscal policy, among other areas of interest. So, like I said, he has the ability to so succinctly explain arcane concepts, but his insight will be invaluable to set the context for our understanding of today's budget. Samir is a graduate of the Delhi School of Economics and also holds an MBA from the Indian School of Business in Hyderabad. So without much further ado, we'll get started on the topic on hand, India's Union Budget 2022. Ambassador Ji laid it out very well. India is poised to be one of the fastest growing large economies of the world. So I believe the economic survey said that India grew at about 9.2% in 21-22, and 22-23 is expected to grow at 8.5%, which many experts say is actually quite conservative. But the finance minister has stayed conservative. Despite it being an election year, it is not a populist budget. It is a strategic, growth-oriented budget, which is not short-term. Like Consul General said, it looks to the India of the next 25 years to become the India that we will be in terms of infrastructure, in terms of nation building, and so on. So I won't. I think Ambassador set the tone so very well in describing all the key elements. So I won't go into that detail again. I will say though that the pros are many. It is surprising in terms of how growth oriented and how non-populist it is. But at the same time, there really does not seem to be that very much for the individual taxpayer. And there are complaints from some quarters that more could have gone into the social sector, especially given the distress of the last couple of years. So let's dive right in. The way that we will be structuring these questions is first addressing ones of macroeconomics and the larger economic context before we narrow down then on tax policy. So my first question is to you, Samir Narang. May I ask, what were the key worries or what were the key issues that India was trying to address with this budget, and how well has the government succeeded?
Good morning here from India. First of all, good morning to the ambassador, to ICAI members who've joined here, and Geetha as well. And thank you for hosting me. I think if we take a step back over the last few years, the trends that we've been seeing is that the GDP growth in India is largely driven by consumption. It's the private consumer, or consumer is who has done the heavy lifting over the last 7-8 years. Investment to GDP ratio actually peaked just about 2013-14 period around, and both corporate investment as well as real estate investment, which is household investment to GDP ratio, have been actually sliding lower. So if you look at the corporate investment to GDP ratio, it's come down all the way from more than 15% to 12% where it settled. And if you look at the household investment into real estate, that actually slid all the way from 15+% to 10% during the FY21, which is the pandemic year. So pre-pandemic also, these trends were evident. It's just that during the pandemic, it slid further because of lockdowns, and savings rates for households and corporates actually went up a little bit. So even before the pandemic, actually the government has been trying to revive the private sector capex cycle. There have been a number of steps from supply side, the reforms, be it GST, be it the bankruptcy code, be it recapitalizing the banks and reducing the corporate tax rate so that corporates have more cash for reinvestment and a higher return on equity, so that it kickstarts their ability to generate additional cash for investment rather than paying out as taxes. The policies have been very, very consistent. Make in India, the PLI schemes, everything has been very, very consistent over the last few years. So what this budget actually does is that it actually accelerates all these policies at a very, very sharp speed. So if you look at it, over the last few years, it's only the government spending to the government investment to GDP ratio, which has been very, very stable. The general government investment to GDP ratio has been around about 3.5%. During the COVID, actually went up, and this year actually it's going to go up even further. So as private sector has been facing its own challenges and trying to recuperate, the government has actually stepped up the accelerator to crowd in private sector capex. And if you look at the allocation ministry by ministry, I mean, in FY 2019, roads and railways, the allocation was 0.5 trillion. Now, roads alone allocation is $25 odd billion. So it was less than $10 billion, right? It was actually $7 or $8 billion. So it's a 3x jump in allocation by the government for roads. If you read the economic survey, it tells you that India had 71,000 kilometers of national highways in August 21. Now it has more than 140,000 kilometers. So you have doubled the national highways from a supply side perspective over a period of 10 years. If you look at the rail network and the railways, railway allocation is also one of the highest, including resources to be raised by the IRFC and other step-down entities of Indian Railways. That number is actually at $30 billion. That again was at $7 or $8 billion. So that's a 4x jump from 2019 to 2023. So in a span of 4 years, you are looking at acceleration in investments in ensuring India's supply side sees a massive improvement. If you look at the turnaround time that Indian ports are today, registering or reporting, it was more than 100 hours, a couple of years back for turning around a ship. Now it's less than 60 hours. Perhaps in the next few years, we'll move to a number close to 24 hours, even less than that, which is a global benchmark. So that actually improves competitiveness of Indian exporters, of Indian manufacturers who want to ship goods on time to the consumers in the world. I think this budget lays out that plan. So one has to read this budget from a context of what has happened over the last few years, and it's a continuation, and I believe an acceleration of that policy, which will lay down a path of sustainable growth as Indian entrepreneurs and Indian farmers, all of them integrate with the global markets. Apart from that, if you look at from the sectoral standpoint, what the budget has tried to do, and actually Ambassador has already covered it, but some of the things that he mentioned was about the focus on digitization and digital infrastructure. India is perhaps the largest market in payments. We have our own unique solution in payments, which is one of its kind, and is actually led to much faster adoption of digital infrastructure in payment space, because it's far cheaper than using the global giants. So the network is very, very efficient. It has led to massive growth in India's payment infrastructure, and that is very positive for formalization of the economy. So, and this actually the next few years lays out a path for further investments in ensuring, as Ambassador talked about, the BharatNet. Already 1.7 lakh gram panchayats are already connected. The plan is to actually double it over the next couple of years. So what you are seeing is both the physical infrastructure going up. So if you look at the commercial bank branches in India, they have actually also doubled over the last 5 or 7 years. So we are looking at an acceleration of both the physical infrastructure, but more than that, the digital infrastructure, because the digital infrastructure is on which India's startup and the consumer tech ecosystem is based. And that and India has the cheapest cost of data across the world. We are the country which has the cheapest cost, despite the problems that we've had with our telecom sector and the budget. And before the budget also, we've tried to solve these problems. So in a nutshell, I think it's an excellent standout budget, which takes care of the problems at hand and tries to solve them. At the same time, the numbers are so conservative. If you just look at the corporate tax collections, and if I look at the numbers of corporate tax collection that happened in last year in Q4 and add it to what numbers we've done up to 9 months, you'll see that we already exceed those estimates from what the budget has estimated. So the numbers are so conservative and so trustworthy that we believe that these numbers will be definitely overachieved. And perhaps you're right, Geetha. There is some requirement for more social assistance. The point being that the numbers are so conservative that you will actually exceed them. So the government will have enough and more room to spend, be it on the rural employment, be it on food subsidy. I do not see it as a challenge at all. What the government has done, and it's actually a very good way of looking at things, is that the extra borrowing that the government is doing is essentially largely or only for capex. So if any other receipts do come, it's government's choice whether it wants to spend it on social assistance program or maybe not borrow as much as it has estimated in the budget. So essentially, in a nutshell, I would say the focus is on right areas. Revenue numbers are conservative. As an offshoot, I think what has happened is that the yields have gone up slightly. Both a phenomena related with the US Fed, the way it's moving, most of the global central banks, yields have gone up across the board in the world due to the change in the monetary policy cycle. So we've seen some increase in yields, which was inevitable in India as well. Apart from that, I think the numbers on the borrowing side were slightly higher than what we had also estimated. But at the same time, as I said, that the revenue numbers are slightly conservative, so they will be overachieved. And the focus is on growth. So our estimate for growth is 8.2% next year. But what I feel is that this budget actually lays out a roadmap to ensure that India grows sustainably above 7% for the next few years as we move ahead, because the traction that we are seeing in electronics production in India is not, is something which, we wouldn't have imagined in our lifetime. So India is the second largest producer of mobile phones in the world now. And last 6 years ago, India was producing 6 crore handsets. Now we are producing 30 crore handsets, last year. So what my point is that this approach. So India was known for its services economy. The point being that in the last 5-6 years, the efforts that we put in, I won't be surprised that India will also be known for its manufacturing economies in the next 5 years. So the upshot being that we are going to see agriculture firing, we're going to see manufacturing firing, we're going to see infrastructure firing, and we're going to see services firing. So you're going to see multimodal engines firing. And I think this lays out a path for sustainable growth because the necessary conditions have been laid out. The banking sector is very, very resilient. It's just on an upturn. Banks have very high capital adequacy ratios. When we entered this cycle in 2013-14, the down cycle, we were very worried about the banking cycle, but now banks are reporting good profits. Even the public sector banks, there's no need to even recapitalize. They're actually able to hit the markets and raise capital as well, which has not happened for the last decade. So in a nutshell, you have buoyant markets in India. So obviously there is some compression that may happen in multiples in certain select sectors. But if you look at the core sector of the economy in India, I think it's just raring to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And on that up note, I'm going to turn to Vedji now for his assessment of the budget.
Thank you, Geetha. Honorable Consul General Dr. Prasad, Chairperson, San Francisco Chapter of ICAI, Madam Geetha, Chairperson from Chicago Chapter, Dr. Mr. Gaurav Jain, Vice Chair, Ms. Sudha Michel, fellow panelists, Mr. Narang, and I have ICAI President in absentia, Mr. Nihar Jambusaria. It's my pleasure to be part of this program and having been invited to share my views on Budget 2022. I'm very happy to join it from New Delhi here and to say good evening to all of you in US. I'm very enthused to see that so much interest in the India budget sitting so far from India and knowing what is happening and how it is happening. Dr. Consul General Dr. Prasad has laid down the roadmap, what should we discuss and what this budget is. But I will start with a different note. Let's understand the compulsion of the finance minister when she starts preparation for the budget. These budgets preparation starts somewhere in month of August, September, October onwards. And I believe how much uncertainty she was having when this budget of 22-23 was being prepared. I believe concrete exercise started in the month of November, and then pandemic was almost over. At that time, nobody was visioning that this Omicron will be coming up, and it is. And when this budget was getting prepared somewhere in the month of December, getting finalized, the Omicron was getting picked up. I think Bombay has started picking up and Delhi was following. And when the numbers were getting finalized in the month of January, it was at peak at India, more than 300,000 cases per day being registered. Uncertainty with the economy. You just look into, I'm not saying Omicron was going to affect health sector, but the issue was uncertainty how the economy is going to behave in the year 2023. And the day when she presented the budget, by and large, people were convinced that Omicron has gone and is blown over and the expectation changes. And the whole arithmetic changes. At the end of the day, budget is an arithmetic exercise. You have to balance what you have to receive and what you have to expend. It is a balancing exercise, and you don't know what is going to happen. And then you have a compulsion to lay down a roadmap of more than 1.35 billion country. Aspiration, expectations, as Geetha ji mentioned in the introductory remarks, nothing in the text, people taxpayer, despite being rich, capable of paying, they say, pay me more, reduce my taxes. And at the same time, we want India should grow. There should be investment in infrastructure. We need to have more money. We need to have work on this. And this year budget, when was presented, has been commented by many, there were compulsions with the finance minister. Oil prices going like up, already hitting $90 per barrel. That was the major challenge which is coming up. Corona crisis was there. Nobody unpredictable corona crisis was there on there. And there is global inflation. Best of developed nations, USA, UK, Europe, all are now in the inflation on that issue. And this affects Indian economy as well. In this background, she had number of suggestions, I believe, prior to on the table. And at the end of the day, she had to pick up what is the best for India. And not to forget, being the largest democracy and being a political leadership also, you have to ensure the budget needs to be populistic. Budget should give a social benefit to all, concession to all. But it was, I think, the vision, courage, and strength of this honorable finance minister. She stood the test of this all difficult time, and she gave a budget which lays down a roadmap for the next 25 years. It is credibility, stability, and what I say, fiscal discipline and the growth oriented. Now the budget is more than almost 100 hours old, And I have gone through various debate articles, newspaper article. Nobody has been able to point out what is the shortcoming in the budget. I may say that I have not got this thing. That's a personal thing. As a taxpayer, or I may be particular interested, I may say a lot. But the issue is the way she has drafted this budget. It's a very, very difficult exercise as an accountant, I can tell, because having been associated with the ministry also in discussion, etc. Because when people come out with concession, immediately the problem comes up from where to meet this concession, how to meet the shortfall. Now, in this way, now what she had done, look at this, the capital expenditure has jumped up by 37% to 7.5 lakh crore. And at the same time, the fiscal discipline is being maintained. The Indian expenditure has gone up 39 lakh crore. Revenue, she has estimated very conservatively, as Samirji rightly pointed out, it's a very conservative figure. But I don't think it's a conservative, it's a realistic picture she's trying to pay. And she says, I don't want to give you a rosy picture. I want to be a realistic budget. And I expect that you should move with me and grow with me and let's move together. When we see the budget was a Gatiman, what is a Gati? Maybe Hindi, it is speed, it is a movement. And she has laid down a roadmap that the 7 areas of the movement will be what can be roadways, ports, airports, railways, waterways. These are the areas which we need to work it out. And so much focus on 2 factors. One, it is not only a growth with reforms, a growth with a future. Look at each sector digitization, the way she has looked into on the digitization aspect. It is not only the digital currency with the Reserve Bank of India will be coming out, she has announced it. She has gone to say to the extent digitization of the land record. I believe many of people have not noticed what she has said in the budget. Digitization of land record in all Schedule 8 language of the Constitution. And say, look at what will happen if land record in India get digitized. It will monetize so much wealth lying in India. The main challenge in land record is not the digitization. People are not able to rotate it fast, which will do it. Now, digitization, what she's talking about is banking. Already we have done a lot on the banking, but she says 75 digital banking center will be there. And look, the massive growth will come on that part. Digital library, she is talking about it. And digital university. Now, this will change the entire landscape of education, because the way she's saying that 200 TV channels in different languages for each channel, for each class, education, best of education will reach out to the remotest part of the area. And one more reform on education. She said, we have a gift city in Ahmedabad, International Financial Services Center, which will be now open to the best of foreign universities and institutions to come there and to impart education in science, technology, engineering, fiscal management, and no regulation other than the normal regulation of that IFSC will be applicable. meaning by the India's regulation on education, etc., will not be applicable. It's open a chapter for all best of industries, I believe, from US also, to come there and to work it out there and to provide education. And this will add quantum jump to human resources, which India will be requiring for in the next 25 years. This is the roadmap. And when I look at the numbers, the way it has been worked out, as Samirji was pointing it out, the fiscal deficit is a major concern always because it demonetizes your currency system to affect your currency also. She said that this year it will be 6.4%. And the next year she says, I am on a fiscal consolidation and India is committed to bring it down to 4.5%, which I believe will be in a position. Now, in this scenario, I believe the way she has looked into the budget and she has provided the direction to the budget, I will believe hats off to her the way she has worked. I believe we may find out, as Geetha ji was pointing out, that there is no much for the social sector spending it. I have an explanation for that. There are two ways to handle an issue like a pandemic, which Corona is there, to give a direct cash support to the people who have been affected. But there is another way how to enable those people to tackle that crisis. If you are a rich nation, a developed nation, you have enough money in your kitty, you can take out that money from your kitty and distribute it to people to meet that challenge. But India being such a large population, 1.35 billion, it's very difficult to provide cash support in the manner in which we expect, because it will ultimately hamper growth, create unemployment, and create more dependency. So there were two choices available: to support them to the extent of subsistence, which they provided by food, grain, etc., being free distribution, etc., but not providing a direct support. But there was an indirect support in the way of Manrega, which is a support which is given, etc. And for that also she has taken care that adequate funds are provided for the provided. I give this budget as said, this budget is a growth-oriented budget. It gives credibility to the Indian fiscal system. It gives stability to the taxation system. It provides growth to all sectors, and it leads to digitization. And it is a step forward where in India, I believe, in next 1 decade will be in the developed nations league. And one thing which probably maybe you have noticed is India has crossed 3 trillion economy this year only. Now we are 3.1 trillion economy, and looking forward to jump to the 5 trillion economy. And in one of the interview given after the budget, some press reporter has asked her, are we on the roadmap and are you postponing when you become $5 trillion economy? Because our vision is to become $5 trillion economy by 2025. She says no change at the moment. And we are still looking forward in next 3 years, we achieve that target of becoming $5 trillion economy. That's all I believe. It was a very, very bold, I will say very bold, courageous budget, not being populistic, not succumbing to the political pressure, but looking to the vision. Yes, we need to take India to make a developed nation. Thank you, Geetha.
Thank you. Thank you both. Very interesting points, and both of you talked about the elements which will most impact the ecosystem and why. Thank you. But what comes out clearly, there's a 37% increase in infrastructure spending, you said, Vedji. And all of this goes into building the ecosystem. And then you allow, corporates and individuals to grow within that ecosystem, and therefore, GDP increases. But the question that I ask you is, what are the steps that are being taken to keep the economy open? Because, I mean, we all know the uncertainties surrounding COVID. You talked about oil price. So I know we shouldn't, direct support is not the way to go. But what steps is the government doing to keep the economy open? Because all of this infrastructure and all of that, without being actually able to keep the economy open, won't quite work. So I address this to Samir Narang.
Yeah, hi, Geetha, thank you. So I think if you look at from a supply side perspective, what the government can do, perhaps our when we hit the pandemic, I think so many foreign journalists and people wrote off India, saying that India's health infrastructure will not be able to tackle this. Look at the situation today, right? So we have one of the highest vaccination rates in the world. In terms of absolute quantum, perhaps we've done more than anybody else. And look at the price at which we are doing compared to what our global peers are paying to get it done. That is one part. The second part, if you look at from the government's point of view, recently we opened up vaccination for 15 to 18-year-olds, right? And if you look at the data today, within a few weeks we've actually managed to vaccinate, the last data I checked was close to 60%. It would have gone up because on a daily basis it actually accelerates, right? So within a few weeks, if the demand is there, supply has caught up, and this supply has been done very actively. We have a unique a situation in which we don't have one vaccine, we have more than one. One, of course, has been the technology has been taken from the West, but look at the manufacturing capacity that India could steamroll in a very, very short time. And we have an indigenous vaccine which is developed within India with ICMR and one of the Indian health care provider. So I think the government, in terms of tackling of the situation, initially we went through a lockdown, which was national level, but after that, the restrictions are dependent on need based. And if you go through the ECO survey as well, it said the same thing, that we've had a very agile response to the pandemic. We've not done a one size fits all. Depending on the situation, tracking the data, we've looked at where the requirement is there and accordingly done intervention. Now, going forward, India perhaps will be, see, what you are seeing globally is perhaps, a situation in which you are not going to see an opportunity in which such large enterprises perhaps are being available for privatization. Last time such mass scale privatization happened perhaps was, in England in late 80s, when it was done by Margaret Thatcher. After that, perhaps Singapore has done a few, but such large-scale privatization that India is offering. So actually, India is embracing privatization. India is embracing foreign capital at a scale which it has not done before. And the Indian government is openly saying that, this will lead to much better productivity and much better return on capital for the economy. And that tax receipts that come and the formal sector employment gains that come out of it would imply higher taxation. And that can be deployed for more investments into the social sector and into hard infrastructure. So I think from an openness standpoint, I don't see a challenge. There are some experts who counter India's trade policy, but if you study the trade policy of the countries which were able to scale up manufacturing, this is actually the playbook. You try to scale up domestic manufacturing, giving some incentives, giving some protection, and as scale builds up, these companies and the infrastructure builds up, these companies are actually on their own so competitive that you don't need any incentives. Actually, they go out and they capture the world market. So India's share in global manufacturing exports is only 2%, and sky is the limit. So my sense is that, this budget actually is actually on the right path, right direction, what India has done from a policy standpoint. And I don't see a challenge in terms of, how open it is. I think India is embracing private capital and foreign capital with open hands.
Awesome, thank you. Could I also ask you to spend maybe a couple of minutes more on like, if we are indeed going to receive all these receipts and we can very well weather, what COVID throws our way because of our, of our vaccination rates, and possibly what oil and inflation throws our way. why not spend a bit more on the social sector? Why was MNREGA, I understand that it was slashed. So why not spend a bit more on the social sector? In a couple of minutes, please.
Right. Yes. First, I think let's discuss one point you spoke about higher oil prices. So if you look at the budget, it actually has cut the excise duty collection next year by around about 15 odd percent. So from 3.9 lakh crores or 3.9 trillion, it has brought it down to 3.3 trillion. So, typically India has a volume growth. So if you keep excise duties flat, you would see actually an acceleration. But the budget has actually kept a lower number, far lower number. So it is already building in a supply side response of a cut in excise duty if oil prices remain here. So that is actually inbuilt. So what I'm trying to say is that the budget actually takes care of a lot of these issues. The second part is on the social sector side. So on the social sector side, I think on particularly rural employment, what you are seeing is actually the agriculture sector, is in itself doing very well. It's the non-agri sector where your point is well taken, that there is a challenge, particularly in the contact-intensive services and services sector in general. But if the construction spending that we are going to see through the budget, the second thing is that we should not forget that, approximately 6 crore jobs or 60 million jobs are there in India in construction sector. Now, the point being that these jobs can actually go manifold, not only because of public capex, but also because of India's real estate cycle is turning. If you look at the stamp duty collections, post-COVID, I'm not looking at only the formal sector large players, because perhaps you can always argue that the larger players are gaining share. But if you look at the stamp duty collections, which is a reflection of turnaround time or turnaround in the real estate sector, these numbers are now higher than pre-COVID levels, right? Number one, and in double digits. That is number one. The second point is that if you look at the number of jobs that we are creating in ITES sector by the top players, we are going to create more than 200,000 jobs this year alone, which is a plus of 20% only by the top players. If you start accelerating and take the entire ecosystem, it will be a multiple of that. So the upshot being that you are seeing massive job creation. You're going to see massive purchases in terms of real estate. That should also spur construction activity from a private sector standpoint. As we had discussed, it has come down all the way from 15 to 10% of GDP during COVID time. Now it's going to accelerate much, much faster. And India is one of a unique market in which actually real estate prices have not gone up compared to what's happening in US or UK, where price increases are in double digits. So affordability is actually very good. Interest rates are low. Perhaps they'll go up, but still affordability is very low. You are at a cusp of a cycle there as well. So the point being that there will be the natural private sector acceleration along with government, which should create jobs. However, the point is well taken. What if, the MNREGA schemes, the demand for work is much higher than what you're saying? The numbers are so conservative that you can actually pull in resources from the tax collections and allocate it for MNREGA spending. So that switch is obviously possible. Last year also the government did it. Actually, the food subsidy bill that was initially allocated, the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana in itself has spent $20 billion last year. I was allocated in the second supplementary, if you include that, only for the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, which is the allocation of free food grains. So if there is a challenge from a social sector standpoint, I don't see any reason why, because the numbers are so conservative. Like last year also, the acceleration in actual revenues will be very, very different from what the government had budgeted. So next year also, the nominal GDP that the government is building in is only 11%, 11.1, and actual number will be northwards of 13. So if you look at the tax buoyancy the government is projecting and what actually will come up, you will naturally see much higher revenue collections until you have a different wave or something coming about, which we are not projecting right now given India's vaccination rates. So in my sense is that can always be done on a need-based situation. In this budget is preparing India for a situation in which perhaps there is no COVID. I mean, we are out of it, right? So we should be optimistic and hopeful that that's the way it works out, right? And if it doesn't, I think they'll have more enough revenue and resources to take care of that.
Awesome. Well, on that positive note, I hope all of that comes out true. But now I will turn back to Ved Jain Saab. Can we talk about direct taxes. The changes, or perhaps I should say the lack of changes, what are perhaps yeah, I'd let you go with that, and then maybe then ask follow-on questions. So your view on the direct taxes, Jain sir?
First to answer just to add something which Mr. Samir has said about your social sector, just one line I will say to it. As I said earlier, social sector can be taken care of by generating employment two ways: you provide money or you unable to provide money, employment. PLI, the production linked incentive scheme, which government of India is propagating in 14 sector and is likely to come up with in other sector, is going to generate a huge employment opportunity, because the scheme clearly says that if you push up your production, if you set up new industry, etc., government will support it. So it is an efficient way of using the what we call the service sector and services and the create employment. If rather I give the money directly and then it goes unproductive, the idea is to generate, and that's why India is looking to becoming the manufacturing hub of the world. That's the idea which I take away. Now, coming to the question which you have directed upon the point taxation is, it looks very attractive at the point that every budget should give something in tax concession, every budget. But I pose a question as an accountant again and as a tax consultant. If every budget is going to reduce taxes, where we are going to end up? At best, we can adjust for inflation or adjust for changes which is happening over a period, but we cannot give one after the years others, go on adding concession, etc. And as I said earlier, one should be thankful to the finance minister. The 2 years, 2021, 21, 22 are almost gone. There was so much to spend for India, as you say, social sector, health sector, and we want the government to provide vaccination, government to provide health to all, government to provide sanitation to all, everyone. And these 2 years, collections have been down because there have been lockdown, there have been suspension of the economic activities. Look at what has happened to hospitality. It's absolutely, for the 2 years, almost closed. Look at what has happened to entertainment. Theaters, movies, sports events, minimal. Similarly, aviation. Now, government is not getting revenue from that. But at the same time, it is need to spend money and to support that industry also, in one way or the other way. Now, from where the money is going to come up? I should say the taxpayer should be thankful to the finance minister. She had not imposed any additional tax, surcharge, or cess, that this was a corona crisis and you are rich people, you are tech, you have a capability, you please contribute. So as I say, give an example, when you look at a glass, whether it is half empty or half full, I say it is half full and you should be happier. And you say it is half empty, then she could have said, my glass has gone further down, please contribute more. So that way I give credit to the finance minister, that she has not asked for additional taxes, and that itself is a big relief. We don't have inheritance tax, we don't have an estate duty tax, we do not have any other tax on that part, and you can do still better. Secondly, I appreciate the finance minister, it brings stability to the taxation. Years after year, you go on changing tax rate, it brings instability. You can better plan it, you can do it better. And look what we have done in 2019, the corporate tax rate was brought down to 15%. I believe which is the lowest in the world. Now, any industry, any person from across the world can set up a company in India and do any manufacturing, and the tax rate will be just 15%. This is the minimum tax rate which we are having as on date. But in addition to wherever the need was, she has tinkered with and provided some relief also. One was the long-term capital gain, which may be of interest to my all non-resident investors also from here also. We have a tax rate of 30% for individual, and the surcharge goes up to 37% if your income exceeds ₹5 crore. Now, in order to remove this anomaly, that in long-term capital gain, when you make investment and you have a sufficient long-term investment, with the period is more than 2 years, the surcharge rate will be 15%, not 37%. So it brings down the effective tax rate from 42.5 to bring back to 37. So it's a big relief for 5 to 6% tax rate. Similarly, it brings the tax rate on long-term capital gain which otherwise could have gone to 29% to 24%. So all of you, in case you are having any investment in India, maybe a house, etc., if you intend to selling it out, and likely gain is actually going to exceed, where your total income will go beyond 2 crore rupees, you will be now getting a concession and your tax rate will be 15%. And my only advice will be, if you have taken a decision, please postpone it for another 2 months, because this new rate will be applicable from 1st of April, 2022. So that's a big working. In addition, there is a change in the rate for the association of persons. Many of the companies, foreign company, international companies, when they participate in India, they participate in joint venture and they make a consortium. And then there was a higher tax surcharge of 37%. On such consortium, also the tax rate has been reduced. So I will say, yes, you do expect in every year, as I say in Hindi, normally you may say, dil mange more. But the question is, the finance minister has her own compulsion. She has to carry out the balance exercise. But I believe this time she has done a very good job, not tinkering with the tax rate and not getting pressurized, what we call a populistic budget on that time.
Thank you. So, Vedji, you spoke about two things that would be of interest to us outside the country. One thing was long-term capital gains, and the second was with respect to the association of persons, also getting the 15% rate. So, are there other matters in here that are of particular interest to the NRI?
Yes, please. You see, India is having an international financial services center at Ahmedabad, which we call a gift city. This was a dream project of our honorable finance minister when he was even the chief minister of Gujarat. So has been developing that. We are developing it absolutely as a separate area for making India as the financial hub. That's the idea. And years after years, concessions are being extended. Now, in that International Financial Services Center, now there is an exchange and there is a lot of activity going. Last year, we made an amendment where we allowed banks to set up a banking unit there. And if you set up a banking unit there, its income will be exempt. All transaction has to be done in foreign exchange other than Indian rupees. And whatever you borrow, whatever you lend, and whatever you profit, etc., it's tax-free. Now, this gives a very big arbitrage opportunities, people to set up, and you can lend money to Indian people also. Now, in this budget also, a number of amendments have been made, extending benefit to non-resident, not necessarily non-resident Indian, or to extending benefit to all the non-resident. If you do transaction in that exchange, maybe in what we call forward contract, derivatives, portfolio management, etc., your income will be exempt. So now it will be a big financial opportunity there that you can trade, you can do derivative, you can have an investment there. Now that International Financial Services Center is going to give you an opportunity in the form of a tax relief that there will be no tax. It is just like you are outside India, in that manner only India. But you have to carry out the transaction at that International Financial Services Center only. That's a money. Further, in order to promote more financing, now, last year we said aircraft leasing, etc., that income will arise, royalty income, interest income that arise from that will be exempt. So now we do say not only aircraft, helicopter, ships also, their parts also, if you do interest or leasing, etc. So this can be a good business model to carry out activity in that International Financial Service Center, and that will also be tax-free. So idea is to develop that area as an independent area, so that India can attract investment and you can get attracted to India. So all my friends are non-resident, in case they are making a portfolio investment, I think I will suggest that they can switch over their investment to portfolio management services in India International Financial Service Center, and that can be a good opportunity on that part. Another thing which I thought about is USA has many best of the universities providing best of education, and if they set up their university education, colleges, etc., there in International Financial Service Center, they can provide their services, and all those services will be available there. So that can be additional work area which has been opened up by the India. These are the big reforms India is taking. Look at, we had difficult year last year some reforms were carried out in agriculture sector, which could not be carried forward because of the some issue, communication gap, whatever we may say it. But still, this budget takes the reforms forward. It is not that the finance minister has stopped and took, no, we will not carry out reform. So all financial reforms, liberalization, opening up the economy, because Geetha ji, you talked about whether we are allowing opening of the economy. Yes, we are opening the economy, and we are looking forward to large investment. And look at the infrastructure. It looks to be 25,000 kilometers of road, etc. What area? Ports. And then we are saying ropeways also. I think many of the companies which have expertise in ropeways, they can come and do business activity there. The way we are expanding metros, but all those companies which have expertise, they can do business, a lot of business on that part. That's a part, I believe, taxation part is well taken care of. And I don't believe now India as an India with 15% tax on corporate, it is the lowest tax rate and anybody can come and operate for individual also and for all others also.
Thank you. We already have a question on that corporate tax rate. Why the corporate tax rate is 15%, whereas maximum individual rate is at what, 40, 42%. But we'll come to that in just a bit, because I think, there is, if you look at the media and everywhere else, there is so much buzz about the crypto angle and the digital rupee angle. So for that, I will turn to Samir Narang. So let's talk first about the digital rupee. What exactly will the digital rupee do? Because even today, a lot of our transactions are online, are digital. So what will the digital rupee do?
Right, it's a very good question. So if you dissect the digital transactions, right, what you will see is that there is still India's, first of all, on a big picture standpoint, India's cash to GDP ratio is, as you would know, is 14.5% now. So even pre-COVID, that number was, 12% Demonetization, it had come down, again gone up, but now it's accelerated further, right? If you dissect the data where cash transactions are happening the most, you will see that the small denominations is where the cash transaction is still very high, right? If you look at the bigger denominations, obviously people are spending more on their credit cards or through debit cards. UPI transactions, which are very cheap mode of transactions, have helped in also ensuring that the digital transactions happen at the lower end. But still, if you look at smaller transactions, they're still happening through cash. That is one. Number two, what this can change then, if you understand the problem, is that if you have a digital transaction network which has lower costs, in which the government can also, for some of its schemes, rather than transferring money through different other channels, can directly remit some of these DBT transactions or some other transactions that the government does with the households or consumers directly into their wallet through a digital rupee, which actually ensures that there is complete one-on-one understanding or one-on-one mapping of what is available to each person and how much it has gone to each person's wallet or to its mobile phone now. Earlier, this was not possible because we didn't have digital penetration to the extent we've seen now. And, there have been, of course, a lot of, challenges that everybody pointed out that maybe India may not be able to sustain on this path of digitization. But if you look at what has happened under the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana in terms of financialization, of ensuring that most people have a savings account, and now with this digital rupee, it will actually spur or it will ensure even deeper penetration of the formal financial services into the rural hinterlands. And even in urban areas, you'll see more and more transactions are digitized. So this trend of digital transactions has been seen across the world. In India, it's catching up, and the digital rupee makes sure that you do not have to go to some of these cryptocurrencies as a means of payment. So cryptocurrencies in India perhaps will be virtual digital assets, which could be You can have many assets. So you have a virtual asset as well. So you can have a physical asset or as well as, a virtual asset. But for payments requirement in the legal tender as we speak will only be a physical rupee and a digital rupee, which will be backed by the RBI's gold or the forex reserves. So in India, if you dissect the RBI's balance sheet, you will see for every rupee of currency that has been issued, it's either backed by gold or by RBI's investments into forex reserves, which is probably US dollar or a euro or something. There are domestic securities also, but they're largely not kept as part of the issue department. It's part of the banking department. So the upshot being that the digital rupee will be secure, which will be backed by a legal tender, by reserves, and it will be used for payments as well. And it will ensure deeper penetration of payments into the Indian economy and the rural hinterlands from where it is. So it will cut transaction costs. The government can actually transfer some of its own scheme money directly into the beneficiary's account. So it ensures there is one-on-one mapping, and they know whether the person. So a lot of times we probably hear stories, we don't know whether the person is spending, there is something else happening. Now, everybody has complete control over what they've got from the government, how they want to spend it. And if there are issues, we can resolve them. So I think in terms of transparency, in terms of digitization, in terms of openness, these are all, moving in the right direction. And this will lead to further acceleration of growth, of digitization in the long run. And I think it's a very positive event.
Excellent. Thank you. So what I'm hearing is we need the digital rupee as a store of value. That can't be Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. And we are going digital because, that will ensure better transparency. You said direct mapping, and it's possible then it spurs digitization and greater adoption.
So Geetha, one more thing here. Apart from this, there are some international, most of the countries will have their own digital currencies.
Yes.
So if you're part of, and there will be networks which will be built around it. So it also leads to faster remittances. So I've not talked about it because that doesn't impact the Indian consumer directly, but it's inevitable because of the foreign remittances that perhaps will happen through digital transactions, which are already happening digitally. But the digital rupee in itself, with a digital dollar or a digital Sing dollar, there can be networks around it, and you'll be able to square it off. So the international transactions that are happening, which are largely dollar denominated, the yuan is also building its own currency, digital currency. So there are other, perhaps issues that play as well, but which I didn't want to talk about it because you're focusing on the consumer side.
Awesome. Yes. And what I'm hearing is it's inevitable. So we're building towards that. Vedji, your take on cryptocurrencies other than the digital rupee, now that it's going to be taxed at 30%, how do you see that impacting the crypto market in India?
See, let me just, Geetha add what Sameerji has explained a little bit what I have understood about cryptocurrency technicalities. Just give me 1 minute to explain what is cryptocurrency technically.
Yes.
See, in older time, we used to have a barter transactions.
Right.
You give one product, buy another product. Now, in order to facilitate business, because it was not always easy to carry one goods and to bring another goods, we started with this bullion. You carry gold, silver, and in lieu of that, you get product. That became a medium to get into business. And as the business flourished and the more civilization advanced, then these gold bullion became coins over a period in different denomination. You can carry and bring it. Further, as we went, it went into the paper currency, where equivalent amount of bullion was kept in the vaults of the central bank, and the currency was gold. Then as we started doing more global business, what we did, you deposit the money currency you are carrying into the bank, and that bank will carry out a transaction on your behalf, and he will remit the money wherever you want, and you have a right to write a check and they will transfer it. But still there will be a transfer of money also. And as we advance further on that part, then we had a credit card that you use that credit card instead of writing a check, you use it and later on pay it. It was a facility, what we call a paper or plastic currency now. Now, as the world is moving more and more digitized, now the challenge has come that why I need to carry paper currency, why I need to use the bank even. I can carry all my money in my mobile phone, in my all my computer only. Now, if I send my one photograph, one document to you, now that document is also with me and with me also. But if I want to send money to you directly, how do I send it? So now cryptocurrency is being generated where the money, all cash is in your mobile phone itself, in your digital form itself. And when you send it, it goes out from you and it copy does not remain with you. You become the owner. So idea is that you can send gold, money, bullion directly from one mobile phone to another. Physical movement of through cryptocurrency from one person to another person. And what Samir will say, now you need not use bank. If I have the money, say $1 million with me, I want to say $10,000 from my mobile phone, it will move out and it will reach out to you. That is the cryptocurrency which is get generated with no duplication, because otherwise the duplication, then value loses out. So that is the area which is the cryptocurrency. Now, this is going to be the future. And I am happy that Government of India and the Finance Minister realized this compulsion instead of banning this cryptocurrency as was being contemplated somewhere in the December when the winter session was there. But now they've realized that yes, India has to live with it and India must go ahead and bring the reform. Now, what she did, as on date, whatever you are doing in cryptocurrencies, without going into the question that whether it is legal or illegal, the tax rate will be 30% straight away. This is to streamline and this is to remove confusion, nothing at more. And many people have written why 30%. I'm saying simply one simple answer. Even in India today, if your income is more than 10 lakh rupees, you are in 30% slab. And how many people between 1 to 10 lakh are there which will get suffered? Because even above after 5 lakh, it is 20%. So it is a very simplification process. It is to remove ambiguity. It is just to put controversy at rest that you need to pay 30% tax, and that's a virtual digital asset. And in order to ensure that there is a compliance, then there is a tax deduction at provision which says 1% you deduct. That's only to ensure compliance. I don't think there should be any concern, but people should be happy that India is going to adopt digital currency. And as Samir has explained in detail, Reserve Bank of India is soon going to commit out with its own digital currency. May not be exactly in the form which we are contemplating the word cryptocurrency, but yes, it will be a regulated currency and it will have a confidence, not like other cryptocurrency, where in the morning you have a rate of $1,000 and in the evening 2,000 and next day morning again $1,500. Currency is a medium, it must be stable. It cannot fluctuate like a product fluctuate, like a capital market or share fluctuates.
Exactly. But on that note, we have a question from Lokesh Sharma. Okay, if that's the case, if I have to pay 30% tax, will we be permitted to pay our taxes and purchases also in crypto?
Yes, when the Reserve Bank of India comes out with digital currency, you can pay. There's absolutely no. But till such time, it is not a legal tender or legal currency. You cannot pay.
So not in Bitcoin.
No, not yet, because it's not considered to be a currency.
Yes.
The Finance Minister was very clear what is currency, what is foreign currency, and cryptocurrency is not a currency. It has to be regulated, and unless it is regulated, it is not a currency.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We have many more questions, but before we go there, our president, the president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, CA Nihar Jambusaria, is online. I was hoping he could say a few words. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Geetha. And it's a pleasure to join. I'm sorry I could not join in the beginning because here some emergency was going on and I had to attend that first. I was listening to the discussion on virtual digital assets and cryptocurrency, virtual currency. Vedji has explained the entire process from barter economy up to digital currency in very simple words, and very rightly put that all doubts that people had about whether virtual assets or virtual currency is legal or not are now dispelled with the levy of tax on digital currency. So I think there is better clarity, and this is a step towards further advancement, because the world is going to transact like this, and all these currencies perhaps people will convert into digital currencies only, and they will own these assets going forward. Perhaps we do not know what is the future. But apart from this, in this budget particularly, if you look at two very important continuations that the government has extended, are the lower rate of tax for manufacturing company. The time limit has been extended, and the lower rate of tax for startups. So this is going to be another booster for foreign investments into India. Otherwise, particularly in tax, we don't see any substantive provisions which will impact our decision making. There are many administrative and routine changes, and perhaps those changes we will have to learn and adopt. But so far as taxation is concerned, its structure is concerned, we don't see very major changes. Experts are here, and particularly when Vedji and Samirji are there, I don't want to really dwell upon the specific provisions in the bill, but it's a pleasure always to come and interact with San Francisco and all chapters in USA. You have taken very good initiative of organizing this talk, because very soon perhaps we will be transacting in such a way that each country's budget will be relevant and important for us. So particularly these TDS provisions, compliance with that will be very important for each one of us. And I'm sure that all the listeners are very interestingly getting what they need to know. So with this, thank you so much for inviting, and sorry for the interruptions in the talk, which was very smoothly going on. And even I felt at once why I should intervene and let me listen to this smooth flow of talk which is going on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Niharji. Thank you very much, CA President Nihar Jambusaria ji. So turning back to our question and answer session. So Vedji, there are these questions which say, why do we not have more recognition to sincere taxpayers? Why is it that individual taxpayers are taxed at that higher maximum rate as compared to corporate taxpayers? Vedji?
I believe, Geetha ji, it's a standard system of direct taxes. The question is, as an individual, your ability to pay tax increases as your income increases. So we have a graded tax rate structure, what we call progressive system of taxation. And for artificial entities company, we have a fixed rate of taxation system. But we should not forget that what you earn as a corporate, it's an income of the corporate, and it remains with the corporate, and you can't use it, distribute it. The moment you distribute it, it goes in the hand of the individual ultimately, and then individual is liable to pay tax. So if you see I think in US also, etc., I was just looking at comparison on this part here, that first you pay tax, there are small company and there is a large company, corporate, small. So first you pay tax there, and then you pay tax on the individual also. So in India also, if you fall in, I believe there are 3 tax rates applicable in India on corporate. One is on manufacturing company, new manufacturing company is 15%. Then there are smaller companies which can pay 25% tax, but there is an adoption of 22% tax you can adopt. And then for large company, there is a tax rate of 30% also. But after paying this tax, then you distribute dividend, then individual is supposed to pay again dividend tax on that dividend, which will again depend upon which bracket you fall, and it can go up to 42%. As regard individual tax rate, I don't think that Indians tax rates are too high. Like, just look at this. It is about 30%, up to 50 lakh rupees. There is no surcharge, so tax rate is 30%. 50 lakhs to 1 crore, the surcharge is 10%, so it goes to 33%. If it is 1 crore to 2 crore, the surcharge is 15%, so it goes to 35% on that basis. And if it is beyond 2 crore, then the surcharge is 25%, then the tax rate goes to 37.5. It is only after 5 crore, which I believe is more than $0.75 million. It's a quarter that way. And when I look at the rate, I compare with a developed country like USA itself. I believe you have a tax rate, the moment it crosses $500,000, then you also levy a tax at 37%, USA levy at 37%. If I'm correct, it is $560,000, something like this, for the next year, and $523,000. So I don't think it tax rates are high. And we must look into that aspect, as you rightly mentioned in the beginning. Social sector, there are people who are able to make more money, but they need to take care of the people who are not able to take money. Sometimes it looks odd if you look at individually that why I should pay tax for the benefit of the others. But I pose a question to them. Had you been able to earn so much income, and had those not people supported you? One is able to make more money as an individual because there are other set of people, you take benefit of those people, employing those people, using those people, and that's why you make more money. And that's why you need to contribute more by way of taxes to take care of those people. So in a civilized society, this is a normal way of taxation. And with a country like India, where we have a population of 1.35 billion like this, and where we have only 6 crore taxpayers, so I think these challenges are there, but I still believe the tax rates are reasonably good, and it's not high that way. And one cannot compare corporate with individual tax rates.
Well said. Thank you, sir. But speaking about that honest taxpayer, there have been some procedural changes this year that allows you to, to file an amendment or a change return. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, Geetha ji, that's the Indian taxation system, particularly direct taxes, has become so fair and transparent. Before I come to this updating of return, you see how many reforms we have carried out on the tax front, GST, etc., which absolutely streamlined on direct taxes also. Now we have a faceless assessment procedure, absolutely faceless. You need not come, you need not interact, and absolutely goes on e-system. And even if there are some scrutiny or what we call audit, then you will not be called and you will not be there. It's absolutely online. Now coming to updating of return. So once you file the return, there can always be a challenge that you may have committed some mistake. Later on, you may realize that you need to correct it. In order to address this finance bill has a proposal that you can update your return even after up to 3 years from the end of that year to which that pertains, what we call 2 years from the end of the assessment year. And with a small amount, 25% additional tax if it is within 1 year, and 50% if it is within 2 years. So that's a change which is there. Idea is a confidence building exercise between the taxpayer and the tax administration. My experience, whatever is there is a wide gap, but the trust deficit we can pay between the tax administration and the taxpayer. Taxpayer always looks upon the tax administration with suspicion, and tax administration looks to the taxpayer with the suspicion. I think there is a need to bridge this gap, and I believe a lot of exercise is going on in India, and the reforms which have been carried out in taxation administration particularly are to bridge this gap. And this budget is also giving a lot of direction to where this trust deficit can be reduced. That's a basic idea. And transparency, of course, is being.
Thank you. Thank you, Vedji. So these procedural changes will apply to those of us who are outside the country and also have, to NRIs as well? I mean,
yes, all persons. It does not make a distinction between individual, HF, or corporate, farm, resident, non-resident, this applies to all. And in case my friend in US there is any issue in the tax return they have not filed in the last 2 years, or the returns they have filed and there is some updating required, some information has been missed out, some income has been missed out, this will be an opportunity which will open up after 1st April 2022. And for the year ending last 2 years, that means financial year 2021 and 21-22 and earlier 1922, there is any issue coming up, they will be eligible to take benefit of this new procedure, and they can update their returns with the correct information on that part.
Excellent. Thank you. I know we're now completely out of time, so I request all the listeners, if we can just take 10 minutes more, we'll round this event up. One last question from Krishnan. He's from Shasta Foods, and he's looking to brand millets from India in the international markets. And apparently there is a line item giving performance-oriented benefits. So that's a very specific question. I don't know, if this is something that our panelists will be able to answer offhand, but perhaps some direction on where he should look for guidance on branding millets for performance-oriented benefits. I address this question to both Jain and Samir Narang, if either of you will take it.
Samir, you would like to answer or should?
No, sir, I would not know about the millets part. Sorry.
I believe the question is coming up because the finance minister announced that millet is going to be that one item during the year. I think they are going to be making. That's
International Year of Millets.
International Year of Millets that she has announced in the budget, I believe. And now I believe if in case any branding is etc. is required, so one can do individually. There is no need to have it. But in case there is some incentives are required or something like required, on the line of production linked incentive PLI, I don't think there is any scheme for millets as on date on the table. Maybe he has an idea. He can share it with I think the ministry there in Ministry of Finance. We have Ministry of Commerce which deal with all these type of issues. And in case there is any other issue which is related to what we call manufacturing or DIPP, etc., so better Mr. Piyush Goyal is the minister there, Ministry of Commerce. So he can write there. I think he will be in a position. That will write it.
Excellent. Thank you. So if I can request both of you, starting with you, Jainji, to closing comments in a couple of sentences, please. What can we hope for the future? And just your closing comments.
My comment first?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I believe this budget, the finance minister, as I say, is a budget which is making India completely digital. See, if you look at the budget, number of places of digital library, digital education, digital organization of record, digital currency, digital education, everywhere it is a digital on that issue. And I am reasonably confident the type of budget she has presented, many sectors may not be happy because normally we say this sector poor, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, this sector agriculture, etc. She has taken a bold step on not addressing it. She has gone sector wise, and focus is entirely how to make India in the next 25 years what we call the most advanced and developed nation. That's the message which is there, and that too using the best of the ecosystem and environmental friendly, energy friendly, and that's why we are looking to the solar energy, which we have not talked about it. India is going to be the leader in the solar energy. 250 gigabyte is the target which is fixed for 2030, and all vehicles going electric. That is going to be massive investment and opportunity for doing business. That's a budget message which given.
Thank you. And to you, Samirji, same question, closing comments?
No, yes. So I think I agree with the Vedji, what he spoke about. The budget actually, if you look at from the FM and the government's perspective, they spoke about an Amrit Kal, which is, for the next 25 years, we are laying the foundation for a prosperous India, which has the right infrastructure, which is competitive in the world. I think the budget, more than just the arithmetic, as Vedji spoke about, is also a mission statement, or a statement where the government wants this country to go over the next couple of years and decades. And each budget from that standpoint, takes sets priorities and takes the country forward. So I agree with Vedji that what we are going to see is a faster financialization of the country through digitization, which has already happened, but Digital Rupee will accelerate it further. You will see the investments in digital and physical infrastructure going up. So nowhere in the world, perhaps, you are building roads on a daily basis at the pace that you're seeing in India. And what you will see is that Indian road network and rail network perhaps is the best in the world. You would also see perhaps the Indian airline, Air India, which was perhaps in the top 10 in 1980s up to 80s, perhaps emerging back as a preferred carrier for all of us when we travel to India or go out of India in the next few years. So what you will see also from a government standpoint, if you see, defense has been an area which has been India's weak link, because we've been importing a lot of defense equipment. So we will be importing technology, notwithstanding, but 68% of our defense procurement is indigenized, produced within the country. This has not happened, in independent India ever. So the upshot being that more money we are spending, we are ensuring that the value addition happens within the country, and we are ensuring the best of class infrastructure, both physical and digital. So I think that is the new India.
Excellent. So thank you both, gentlemen. This has been so illuminating. Like I said at the very start, I walk away from this a little bit brighter, a little bit, definitely a lot better informed. But more than anything else, it seems to me the toast of the day should be for our finance minister, Nirmala Sitharaman. Sounds like she's done an excellent job, and we have a cracker of a budget. And so with that, I'm going to sign off and hand it over to Gaurav Jain. Thank you, one and all.
Gaurav is mute, I believe. Yeah.
No, I just unmuted. Thank you, Geetha ji, for a wonderful session. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, USA, and good morning, India. Digital greetings from SFO in Chicago. Now that we are going digital completely, I would like to thank our ambassador, His Excellency Dr. TV Nagendra Prasad, for gracing this session and sharing his views on the budget. CA Nihar ji, Jambusaria, our current president of the ICAI, and CA Avish Arunachalam, you are always a constant source of strength and support, and we thank you from the depth of our hearts. CA Jain, our past president, and Mr. Sandeep Narang, Chief Economist, ICICI Bank, we want to thank you for giving us a well-spirited, detailed insights into the India's budget for 22 and 23. In the last 15 years of my life here in the USA, today was the first time that I was able to attend an event like this. ICAI's presence in the USA has made this possible. We are proud to unite our CAs in America through such events. Now, India is at crossroads and very close to being a real superpower. What we saw is not only a budget, but a well-laid path to giving India her rightful place in history and world. Thanks, CA Geetha ji and CA Sudha, for helping out put this wonderful session together. Today's insightful session will be followed by 2 more sessions. So for our NRI friends who are looking for getting some details answered for them, we have a session tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Central, 9 p.m. India, with focus on NRIs and foreign investors. And we will be able to hear more from CA Jain again tomorrow. Another session we have is on next Saturday, Feb 12th. And this will be held by the Washington, D.C. chapter. And please visit their website, ICAIDC.org. As far as ICAI is concerned, right, we grew to be like SFR was our first chapter, and then we started growing slowly. Today we have 7 active chapters: San Francisco, Chicago, New England, New York, Houston, Dallas, Washington, and Washington, D.C. We also have 4 active representative offices in New Jersey, Florida, Seattle, Atlanta, and 4 more representative offices will be inaugurated very soon in North Carolina, Ohio, Arizona, and Michigan. With this, I would hand over to CA Sudha Michel, to recognize the support we get from our sponsors to continue these mutually beneficial sessions. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Gaurav. As we always want to recognize our sponsors because they are our benefactors and they are the ones that are enabling us and helping us to bring these wonderful events to all of you. Want to recognize San Francisco chapter's gold sponsors. You can see that on the list. I'll quickly read it out. Eisner Amper, Sanjeev Gupta CPA, Anand Bhuvan, Harshwal Company LLP, AppRap, and Omium. Our silver sponsor, Chug, and our bronze sponsor, Bhatia & Company, Airite Co, Idea Helix, ICICI Bank. We are really thankful to you, and once again, thanking the panelists for a very, very insightful session. We are closing this session out. Thank you very much.
And thank you to
It has been a pleasure.
everybody.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.